Today we've got a crazy story of a traumatized Redditor doing whatever they can to stop a friend from becoming their own stepmom. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, the dreaded what do you do when you're unemployed due to disability? Background: I'm currently unemployed due to disability. This was not my life's goal. In fact, I have a bachelor's and a master's in a specific field of work that I'm very passionate about. Sometimes life's just one long kick in the urethra, but I digress. Setting: my husband's Christmas work party. Every year I dread these because, given that it's in the context of shared employment, everyone asks the plus ones what they do. The first year, I answered the question with various hobbies or interests. One girl kept asking me about my job, and eventually I snapped at her something about how I obviously don't have a job, given how I've been swerving that question all night. Whatever, I just now try to be aware that that's going to happen, and make sure to stay sober enough so I never raise my voice to someone's plus one. Most recent party, I'd have been mostly successful at avoiding the question by listening to when to enter a conversation, and some very strategic cheese bites. The few times it was asked, I was able to turn the conversation to hobbies or interests, but eventually, I'm cornered by the CEO's wife. She asks the dreaded question and, spoiler alert, was not about to let me redirect her. At this point, I'm fed up and am out of cheese. This was a few years ago, so I'm paraphrasing and shortening the conversation, with reference help from some texts I sent that night venting to a friend. She said, "So what do you do?" I reply, "I play a lot of D&D and play with my cats." She replies, "No, I mean, what's your job?" Me, with a long and thoughtful pause, I really wish I didn't need an elegant way to answer that question. "I'm unemployed, sadly." She said, "Oh, well, what job would you ideally want to have?" I take a beat and then say, some people can't work, even if they want to, even if it's their dream and they have multiple degrees to support it. Perhaps it's painful for these people to talk about. Maybe people who are too sick to follow their dreams don't want to be constantly reminded about what we're not able to do." She goes very silent for a while, and then eventually, "So, is the cat on your necklace your cat?" I reply, "Nope, just some random cat. Excuse me," and then I walked away. Maybe don't press someone to talk about something very upsetting when they've given you multiple outs and made it clear they're uncomfortable with the questions. To be fair, I feel like it could have been a little bit of a social faux pas kind of moment. They just weren't really able to read the room, read the temperature, and they just kind of kept pressing OP because, maybe that's kind of small talk 101 in that circle, kind of like OP highlighted. I don't fault OP for having a bit of a fiery, explosive reaction, considering it's kind of like the one thing they feared the whole night. But I can only imagine that experience for the CEO's wife was like walking up to somebody, trying to inquire about them, and then almost like being trauma dumped on in response. The Devil Is Inside commented on the post saying, "I'm an artist. I constantly get asked what I do for work even after I tell them. They say, 'What do you do?' I say, 'I'm an artist.' They reply, 'But what's your job?' 'I'm an artist.' 'But what do you do for work?' 'I'm an artist.' 'No, how do you make your money?' 'I'm an artist. People pay me to make art, paintings, drawings, crochet, costumes, whatever they want.' 'Yeah, but what do you do?' 'I'm a pirate.' I discovered that if I tell them I'm a pirate when they keep pressing, it shuts them up. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy traumatizing revenge stories, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? Our next story is, "He'll never touch me without showering again." I'll try to be as PG as possible, so you'll have to read between the lines. My boyfriend and I have been together about 6 months. Life in the bedroom was great until he got comfortable asking to be intimate without showering first. At first, it was just in the morning. No biggie, I know how to dodge morning breath. Then he started asking for it after work or after a lazy Sunday, even though he didn't shower on Saturday. Eventually, it got to a point where I could smell his tool from a foot away. I finally spoke up and told him that not showering beforehand is not only a health concern, but it's also downright offensive, especially when we're doing things that require my nose to get really close to it. He pretty much blew me off, which resulted in me refusing him for a week straight. I finally got so frustrated, I have needs too, that when he asked one late night after work, I agreed. He prepared, and I started giving him a nice long massage. I really got my hands all over it. Then, right before we were supposed to move on to the official act, I told him he had dog hair on his face and proceeded to completely and utterly smear my smelly hands all over his mustache. I really got in there, and every time he would jerk his head back, I would insist that the hair was still there and dive back in. I finally stopped when his scrunched up nose suggested he finally understood exactly why I didn't want to go near that thing for a week. I pretended like I wanted to continue, but he quickly tossed me to the side, ran to the bathroom, and hopped in the shower. Yesterday, he showered twice. Don't expect intimacy if you're too lazy to wash your balls. Edit, today, he shaved the stash. Alright, hold on now. I gotta take a beat to just mention the obvious. Did OP doing what they did and revealing to them the extent of their stinkiness and tying it all up into their mustache condition them to perhaps forego having a mustache altogether? Is it like a defense mechanism? If I get rid of the stash, she can't stink me up again. Maybe it's one of those things where you have something that you personally own and it comes in contact with something that you find personally disgusting, and although you clean it up, there's still that lingering sense of taintedness to it. No pun intended. Cami1039 commented, I was worried for a minute that you might try to match his stink. This is a much better response. But OP, the fact that he only acknowledged and did something about it after he had to deal with the grossness of it all is pretty freaked. It's so disrespectful and it says a lot about him, none of which is good. If I could smell my husband's junk funk, there's not a chance in heck I'm going near it. I wouldn't want him going near me after a hot, sweaty beach day or work day, not until I showered. It's basic mutual respect. Our next story is, manager thought I was sad to be leaving. Back in 2020, I worked as a housekeeper at a private hospital on an agency contract. I wanted to go permanent there, but the agency wanted the hospital to buy out my contract and the hospital didn't want to, so I ended up leaving for a permanent role elsewhere. Turned out for the best that I didn't go permanent, as a month or so before I left, we had a new manager, Cameron, start. The hospitality director raved about his experience from previous jobs, but this guy was the epitome of look busy and do freak all. On my last day, Cameron came into a patient room that I was cleaning with a colleague to find me crying. The guy smirked and said, "Aw, OP, are you gonna miss me?" I looked at him and said, "No. My cat died last night." My beloved 15-year-old childhood cat Checkers had been diagnosed with lymphoma only a couple of weeks earlier and started going downhill very quickly. And we had made the tough decision to let him go rather than put him through surgery and chemo. Cameron just went, "Oh," and scurried out of the room. No apology, and he wouldn't look at me for the rest of the day. You know what though? As insensitive as this guy was walking into it, at least they were human enough to understand, oh, that is actually a very good reason for OP to be feeling that way. Should have apologized, but hey, at least they just removed themselves. I just imagine it could have been so much worse where this guy's an insensitive jerk and, gives the whole, well, it's just a cat. Also, my condolences to OP because it's never easy losing a pet, let alone your childhood pet. Sadly, I know all too well how that feels. Sauce Pasta commented, this reminds me of when I left a hotel front desk job. One of my managers yelled at me in front of guests who were checking in, but on my last day, she still had the audacity to ask if the job was really so bad that I felt I had to leave before finding a new one. Gee, I don't know. Our next story is, thanks for the welcome. This is basically the only time in my life I managed to snap back at someone in the moment and not agonize over what I should have said for years after. It's not a big triumph, but I thought it could belong here. About 20 years ago, I joined the Peace Corps and was sent to West Africa. One of my fellow volunteers, who I'll call Bob, was showing me around town soon after I arrived, introducing me to relevant people. I'd already met Miriam, who was like a host mother to all the volunteers in town and had been for years. She was an amazing cook, had her finger in a lot of pies around the town, and let us congregate in her yard to chat more days than not. She and I got on very well. On my welcome tour, Bob and I trundled our bikes past a group of men sitting in the shade on the side of the road, drinking tea. This was really common, as tea addiction was rife, and honestly a lot of men spent the hot season chugging it like water and bemoaning the lack of work, since nothing grew in the hot season, while their wives wore their fingers to the bone keeping house. But I digress. One of the men called out to Bob, and he sighed but stopped to introduce me to Miriam's husband. Can't remember his fake name, we'll call him Jerk. Jerk took a look at me all fresh-faced and naive and started in right away. "You look hot, come here and sit with me," patting his lap. "Where do you live? I'll show you around. Here, have some cigarettes." And probably more that Bob didn't translate, or I can't remember. All the men were kind of leering. It wasn't fun. Bob is a really sweet guy, but he isn't confrontational and just told me to ignore it. Instead, I beamed at Jerk and said in my broken French, "You are Miriam's husband? She is my good friend. She is wonderful. She is like a mother to me. And you will be like my father." He looked horrified, and all his friends burst into laughter and started slapping him on the back. As we walked away, Bob translated what they said for me. She ruined it. I wonder how Bob was feeling on the inside during this entire exchange. OP gets to West Africa for the first time, gets shown around, and immediately one of the people that they're shown to and introduced to is a total creepo that's leering at OP and saying, "Come on, come sit on my lap." Bob must have been there, wanted to facepalm, probably thinking this is the worst representative of West Africa possible. Our next story is Hairdresser learned the hard way about skin conditions. This is an oldie from when I first moved back in with my family after a string of bad luck and mental health issues, but it still gives me anxiety going to hairdressers to this day despite the outcome. For some background, I have really bad skin conditions. We're talking dermatitis that leaves me with open sores all the time and unable to move on bad days. Dyshidrotic eczema that makes my hands develop little pustules that irritate me, and recently diagnosed psoriasis that went unchecked because the family member who had it failed to actually tell anyone she had it, even when her daughter's elbows literally were peeling off from flare-ups. At the time of this, we didn't know I had psoriasis, but I had suspicions because whatever was going on with my scalp felt too undandruff-like to be dandruff. I also have really bad anxiety and depression, and disclosing what I know now to be a chronic illness to strangers is a point of shame for me. Even bigger point of shame if they shame me first for it. I went to get a haircut and kind of give me some positive change in my life, and a haircut is always a quick and easy one for me since I always feel lighter after. It was a walk-in hairdresser, and they have a pretty flat rate that I can afford, and I generally like their hairdressers. Their small talk is pleasant, and they get excited for you if you have good news to share with someone. Very friendly. I always put in effort to wash my hair a day before so there's minimal skin shedding. And I'm good for the most part at it. We now know that I'm allergic to one of the ingredients in the brand I used, but it was the best I could manage without that knowledge. I get called up this day, and I'm sat between two other customers while my hairdresser suits me up and checks my hair. She pulls this big chunk of skin I hadn't seen in the mirror that morning from my scalp, and immediately gets on the offensive about my scalp. "Did you even wash your hair before coming in? What brand did you use? You couldn't have used that one, it gets rid of dandruff. How did you do it? You didn't do it right, you should know to double wash. Now I have to wash your hair too." She charges me more to wash my hair. Understandable, but I never asked for a wash, and the people next to us were awkwardly silent. She washes my hair all aggressive and actually scrubs, and someone else notices some hair is coming out as she does it and makes her stop. She takes me back to the chair, and I'm just so embarrassed as she continues to grumble about how much dead skin there is, and I hit my limit of not wanting to be there anymore, so I blurt out, clearly distressed, "I have psoriasis." You wouldn't believe how fast the lady next to us finished up and said, "How about I take this one? You can ring up my client for me." As soon as she's out of earshot, I got apologies upon apologies, and then a horrified realization that I also have particularly brittle hair, so she'd actually done quite a bit of damage to the scalp when she'd washed it, and her advice would have done more harm than good. I still get charged for the wash that day, but they put a note on my file about my condition so this never happens again, and when I left, it was just in time to see the manager come out and ask to have a word with the hairdresser. Never encountered her at that place again, and now if they make a comment about my scalp, it's to ask if I'm in any pain so they know how gentle they need to be. Ugh, the story breaks my heart because it would be the kind of thing that would really affect me too. I'm the kind of person that can easily latch on to things and memories when I'm putting myself out there, and for me, going to a hairdresser, especially a hairdresser I don't know, it is like a putting myself out there thing for me. To have this experience, and not only that, but have that experience in front of those other patrons. I mean, I'm glad the other staff were there to step in and try to salvage what OP experienced there, because I would feel mortified and deflated as a person from that, let alone the fact that they gave terrible advice and really messed up OP's head. Our next story is, stubborn lady asked for inappropriate photos until I had enough. Background, I'm a man with disability. It's nothing really severe, but I really lack self-confidence, and for that reason, I don't like taking naughty pictures of myself. Also, because of my insecurities, I spend lots of years rather flirting with people online than going out on dates. One day, I was flirting with that lady who was really into naughty conversations with me. She was alerted about my boundaries and decided to show herself to me anyways. She was fun and hot, so why would I say no? However, after that, she started consistently asking for me to show her my body, which I refused several times until I had enough. Then I replied, "You know, I got disabled after crashing on a bike accident. It also tore off my you-know-what. All that I have left is a horrible scar with a lone weird ball at the end and a rubber tube that comes out of my body, and it's from where I pee." She didn't believe the story, but it was successful at refraining her from keeping on asking. For those who are curious, I didn't come up with that idea myself. It's a part of John LaJoy's song called In Different Ways. Look, I'm all for OP having their legal fun and whatnot, consenting adults and all that. But the way this reads, I'm a bit dubious on whether A, this lady actually exists, and B, if that person is actually even a lady talking to OP. I mean, it just sounds really catfishy. Tesseract2 commented, "This is hitting off my scammer radar. She wants a vulnerable picture to maybe get some leverage to try and blackmail you. Since you said you were shy about photos, be careful out there." Our next story is, I want to speak to someone in America. Pull out your US passport. Under citizenship, does it say American? I get traumatized by racists and rude people all day. I work in customer service in the US. Some people freak out if they hear someone with an accent because of hate. They can't understand them. They can't understand them because of a hearing impairment or whatever reason it may be. I got one of the hate customers and they said to me, "I want to speak to someone in America." By the way, this was already a transfer to domestic from international, so how did they not know? And I had just introduced myself, including my location, in crystal clear English. "I want to speak to someone in America." I could have been like, "Well, I'm in Timbuktu, Iowa, let's chat." Instead, I said, "Which country in America?" They go, "What?" I asked again, a little differently. "In which country in America would you like to speak to someone?" The person lets out after a moment a very strained, "Huh?" A briefer moment passes and then they go, "What are you, R-word?" and immediately hung up. What has the world come to? I hope was their next thought. Definitely in the top 5 for best calls ever, and I've been doing this for about 1.5 decades. Anyone in the US is in the United States of America. We cannot technically lay claim to all of America, as it spans 2 continents. We are on the continent of North America. Mexico is in America. Canada is in America. Then we have the countries in Central and South America. All of these countries are in America too, and everyone in all of these American countries technically can call themselves American. Hey, I just gotta say, OP's gotta chill out here because OP can't just go around saying Canada is in America, because that makes me worried that somebody up top is going to get the wrong kind of idea. They've already been spitballing it a few times before. Paul Mem commented, "American company, Indian call center. They had too many racist callers and the American manager wrote out a list of replies Indian agents could say if they encountered such BS. No, ma'am, you don't pay enough to hire Americans to talk to you. American call centers got tired of people like you, so they offload to us. Hey James, the guy wants to talk to an American. Shall I patch it?" "Sorry, sir, James doesn't want to talk to you." If they say, "I can't understand your accent," reply, "Yes, sir. You couldn't understand the written email we had sent you about paying your Skype phone either." All calls were recorded and agents had to flag the one where they used these. It was hilarious. Our next story is Teacher Behaved Heartless, Got Traumatized for It. I was in my early 20s and in nursing school. My childhood dog of 15 years was to be euthanized. This dog meant so much to me. I don't have any siblings and making friends wasn't always easy, but my dog had my back all these years and was there for me during very difficult times. My mom was an alcoholic, my dad was choleric and probably neurodivergent. They separated, etc. So on the last day for my dog, I called in sick at school because it was clear to me that I wanted to be at my dog's side. And if I had to go to class, I probably couldn't keep it together enough to concentrate. I went back to school the next day, and my class teacher asked what was wrong because I still looked bad. A lot of crying before. At that point, I was vulnerable and I knew I should just say I had a severe headache or whatever, but I told the truth. She laughed at me because how could I be upset? It was just an animal, not a person. I remembered that moment, and I hated her for not showing even the slightest hint of compassion. Weeks later, we visited a special center for blind people to educate and inform ourselves. When we entered, we heard big dogs barking loudly somewhere in the house. My class teacher immediately looked around very worriedly and asked the guide if the dogs were unleashed. My face must have had subtitles because the guide looked at me funny, smiled, and answered my teacher's question. The dogs are well-trained seeing eye dogs and are currently off-duty, but locked away as this was their private home. After we saw the exhibition and nearly every group was back at the meeting point, the dogs, 2 Riesen Schnauzer, actually got out. Don't know if he did it on purpose, but he winked at me. I then couldn't stop laughing because these dogs had immediately picked out the only person with a panicky fear of dogs in a group of 60 people, my class teacher. She climbed on chairs and tables to get away from the dogs, who were showing signs of playfulness and curiosity. No aggression. I laughed and laughed. I cried tears. The guard proceeded to call them back, but I suspected the playful tone told the dogs he didn't mean it. I know this from my own dogs. They know they have to behave immediately if I use the serious tone, but if I call them playfully, they absolutely ignore me or think it's a game. After a few minutes, he used a stern command. The dogs immediately came to him, and I petted both of them. I will forever cherish this. Thank you, guide and dogs. To be fair, maybe not the best representation and presentation for the Center for Blind People, but it sure was satisfying. Thanks for visiting. We're going to laugh at you while you climb all over our chairs and tables. Ascient commented, "When I was 18, my parents came into the cafe I worked at to let me know my childhood dog, had her since I was around 2, was going to be put down and asked if I could take a break to come to the vets to say goodbye. Just after I left for work that day, she had gone downhill fast and went from, 'We have a couple of weeks' to letting her live out the rest of today would be unimaginably cruel.' When I got back, my boss asked why I was crying since it was just a dog. I have not seen so many people look so disgusted and leave in my life. The entire, mostly filled cafe emptied of customers within 5 minutes of him saying that to me. Actually, for the rest of the very few weeks I worked there, numerous people poked their heads in, checked if the boss was around, and then decided whether they would buy anything depending on the answer. That man went from disliked but tolerated for the most part to avoided the best he could be. A favorite memory after I quit was seeing a big group of motorcyclists parked near his cafe, only to walk around the corner to a different one while he watched." Our next story is Wannabe Master Manipulator thought he was going to break my heart. This story involves me, 19-year-old female, UK, Ricky, 20s male, Canada, and Amy, 20s female, UK but not living near me. Back in the 2000s, I met Ricky on a music forum. At first, I was quite enamored by him. He was charming, knowledgeable, great to talk to. But in time, the red flags appeared and it became clear that he had delusions of grandeur and was trying to manipulate me into being further drawn to him. By became clear, I mean that he could not help himself and actually told me the manipulation techniques he was using. For example, creating problems and then swooping in to save the day. Apparently, this was to release bonding hormones in my brain. Due to the red flags, I began to hesitate a little, and Ricky did not like this at all. Unbeknownst to me, he was carrying out his ultimate revenge. Flash sideways to Paris. I had met Amy on the same forum, and we became fast friends. So much so that we booked a last-minute holiday together. And there, sat on a bridge over the Seine, after more than a few drinks, she broke down and confessed. Ricky had been messaging her romantically. He was telling her all the things she wanted and needed to hear at the time, using very familiar manipulation techniques, whispering in her ear about me. Comparing notes, it was clear that his plan was to seduce Amy and have me lose both of them in a heartbreaking betrayal. Except, rather than being heartbroken, I was laughing out loud. I knew Ricky thought he was an absolute mastermind, and in that moment he just seemed so lame. Mind you, I was angry about what he was doing to my poor friend who was blaming herself. The absolute joy that was had when Amy opened her laptop led Ricky into a sexual chat and had him turn on his webcam ready to get busy, only for her to turn on hers to reveal the two of us together hugging and laughing at him. We told him that we knew everything and that he had failed miserably. At that point, all he could do was laugh nervously and try to save face before logging off. That guy's self-image as a master manipulator was everything to him, so it was a fun moment to have knocked the wind out of his sails a bit. I'm still friends with Amy to this day, and Ricky faded into internet oblivion. I hope he got help, or at least met with more failures like this. Definitely happened a while ago by the fact that OP was talking about meeting people on an internet music forum. By the way, man, I miss those days back in the mid-2000s where everybody was on forums. Reddit alone has kind of killed off a lot of those forum websites. Regardless, does anybody else feel like OP was way too willing to just put themselves out there to internet strangers on these forums? I mean, OP meeting a few people, getting romantically linked up in this music forum, and also meeting somebody, becoming a friend, and making a random last-minute holiday trip to meet up together in Paris? OP was out there committing 1,000,000% to their music forum friends. Kimmy Mac commented, "My BFF and I did something similar when a dude who was romancing her tried to slide into my DMs. I told her about it and showed her the texts. We played him so bad his whole head and neck turned red. It was brilliant." Our next story is, stopped a friend from becoming my stepmom. Edit, I'm not AI, nor did I use ChatGPT to write this. This is a throwaway account. I just wanted to share it with people for good, sweet validation. I found out this sub exists and now I need to share. Sorry to keep it vague, but I'm not trying to start anything if a TikToker finds this. My mom passed from cancer before she was 30 and it was me and my dad. He was normal, not the most reliable, but I love him. He dated but never remarried. When I was in college, I still lived at home, so my friends came over often. As you can tell, one of them and my dad started hooking up. I found out, which they took as the green light to just start dating openly, and my view of dad just shattered. I felt betrayed by both of them and stopped having friends over and just stayed out. But then another friend gave me an idea to get in the way of their star-crossed lovers story. So I started being creepy to her, said things about how lucky I would be to have such a gorgeous stepmom, how my dad must be treating her right, how I could learn from him, really leaning into some adult entertainment brain rot fantasy. They lasted less than a year. My dad tried to talk to me about it, but I said we just have the same tastes and how I want to have her around more. I'm distant from my dad to this day, since I would rather not risk him using me to find a lady again. That is wild. Just the fact that OP's like, yeah, my dad tried to reach out to me and have a heartfelt one-on-one to work on this, and I just replied, man, let me tell you, you scored, and you better be bringing her around more often. What a piece of eye candy you bagged, Dad. Just absolutely doubling down on making anybody in that relationship extremely uncomfortable. I am really curious though, anybody in the comments, do you think this is a justified freak out, crash out, and revenge kind of thing here? Or considering that the dad and the friend did seem truly happy, should OP have just put up with it despite their discomfort and just let them be adults that were in love and enjoying their relationship? Like, did OP go too far here, or was it extremely justifiable? Sordo Crabs commented, even better, you could have mirrored their relationship by hooking up with her dad and then inviting him over for a family dinner. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy, traumatizing revenge story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.